Want to become a professional speaker? The biggest obstacle may not be your presentation skills. It may be finding the courage to put yourself out there. And you need a book. Now, imagine if the book you've been thinking about writing isn't just a book, but the key that unlocks credibility and opportunities you never saw coming. Well, we've got an award winning author and speaker who knows what it takes to tackle a project that feels overwhelming and turn your experience into something that can truly impact others. You ready? Let's go. Today's guest, Sarah Chalice, is an award winning author of the book Who Cares?, which appeared on television, by the way, cared for her husband with brain tumors for 13 years, and gives talks for charities and companies supporting family caregivers. Welcome to the show, Sarah. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me, Rob.
Well,
Really
you
grateful.
bet. And yours is going to be interesting because we're going to go in two different directions. We're going to talk about the courage it takes to be a speaker and the courage it takes to write a book, which all weave into the same thing. But so let's just start with the speaking side. Many aspiring speakers will hesitate from taking that first step to actually being a professional speaker. What do you think it takes when you're trying to build a speaking career? I know this is a huge question, but we gotta take one step and then followed by the other. What would be the first step or two if you really did have this dream of taking it to the stage?
Okay, well, I think if you've got something you really want to share with the world, and you've been through suffering yourself, a lot of us are suffering all sorts of things. People have been on certain journeys. You have wisdom and knowledge that somebody else is going to really need. That's number one, and I think that's what drove me forward because I think for a lot of us we just don't want to public speak. I went on a couple of courses as well to just kind of get over that, but even still you kind of feel stressed, you feel nervous, you don't know who you're going to be in front of or if you're going to get caught out. But the bottom line is speaking from the heart, speaking your truth and your wisdom. And people, when you've got that integrity and sharing that, people love that. And I notice carers completely shift and change when I've been giving my sessions, so I know how powerful it is. And you know what it's like, Rob, when you listen to a great speaker as well, and it's exciting but you're learning things. There's nothing more powerful, is there, at the end of the day? So I would say to anybody who's contemplating it and I don't know, you'd be amazed. And the transformation within yourself as well, when you step forward and you have that courage to speak up and let others know. I think it's very powerful.
Well, I think you hit on something really important right out of the gate there because it's got to be gnawing at you. It has to be personal. It has to be really powerful. And so sometimes people will see a speaker on stage and go, well, gee, I'd love to do that. We're not there yet. It's a little bit like the book. Now that you're an author, I'm sure many people ask you or will tell you, I've always wanted to write a book. I've dreamt of writing a book. A lot of times I'll ask them, oh, good. What's your book about? And they go, well, I haven't figured that out yet. Okay. Which means the book hasn't found them yet. I'm assuming that the journey you took with your husband was one of the things that the catalyst for this finding you. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Rob. So I think it was in the 12th year. It was actually almost the last year of Neil's life, unbeknown to me. I've been caring for him and I've fallen ill, like most of us as caregivers do. It's that constant burden and that monotony of caring for a loved one. It's probably one of the hardest things somebody can do in their lifetime, I would say. And I said to a couple of friends one evening, I said, you know what, I could write a book on caring. I've learned so much. But then I thought to myself, God, that sounds so depressing. A book on caring, because I thought about what I've been through. I'd also picked up some books at the local caregiver centre, and they were kind of dusty and they talked of tales of woe. And I thought, oh, I said, that sounds awful. And I thought, that's too depressing. And I shelved it, pardon the pun. And I thought, that's it. I'm not going to bother. But within 24 hours, I live here in London, and I went to Tate Modern, and I love it in there, particularly the big bookshop there. And you get all those kind of cheeky books by the till. And I picked one up because I'm a graphic designer as well. And it said, and this is the exact book actually, so I'm just going to show you, Steal Like an Artist. And I thought, oh, I quite like that. It sounds quite funny. So I picked it up, and I just opened it anywhere. I literally, Rob, I just opened it up, and this is what it said.
Mm.
Write the book that you would want to read.
Yeah.
And I laughed, and I just said, and I thought, that is the green light. That's the universe saying, get on with it. People need to know this. So that was it. I just thought, it's going to be more about uplifting, fulfilling. It's about joy, even though you're caring for somebody who might be dying, for all I know. But it's about self-love, self-care, and really lifting your spirits and making yourself more resilient. And so I thought, it's going to be a completely different tune to what I have seen in the past. And that's where I started to go. And actually, I heard Dr. Wayne Dyer say, don't die with your music still inside you. You know, we've all got a book inside us, haven't we, Rob? And you've got many, I think, from the sound of it. So, you know, what is it that you want to share? What is your lasting legacy? Because this is really powerful. It's beneficial to lift so many people. It's so important. And the difference it's made as well. With the book, it's been wonderful since it came out 5 years ago now, actually. And it's now in the second edition.
There you go.
And there you go. So you just don't know where it will take you, if you step forward and step up.
Right. Well, you're either what we call an unconscious competent, which is good, or you're a conscious competent, which means you know exactly what you're doing. But because this is new to you, I want to make sure we'll figure out which one. But I'll tell you something else you did that was really smart, and I want people to hear this. A lot of times, once that book finds us, so okay, I know what I want to write about, but what, who, how, what does it look like? I think one of the best things we can do is go find our book. Basically, go to a bookstore and okay, what section would it be in? And then, and where would it be? And then we see things that add to our creativity that we can benchmark and go, oh, I like the playfulness of this book. In other words, taking a difficult topic, but not making it so scary. But I don't like this. But a lot of it comes from looking what's out there. And
Yeah.
it's an instinct that people will block. And I think it's a wonderful instinct. It really gives you a head start.
Yeah, it does. It that creativity, really, isn't it? When you go into a bookstore, there's so much. I mean, when you look at all these book covers, it's all exciting. I was shortlisted for the Business Book Awards as well last year, and I remember seeing all the whole massive array. It's not like sweeties in a candy store, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I want to read all of them. They all look fascinating. They all look interesting, and they are. There's loads of nuggets of wisdom, but you can't read everything. But I think it is that it's seeing what you don't like and then move, what is your unique message that you've got to give out there, and how you're going to put it out there to the world as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's remember that brainstorming, people confuse brainstorming a little bit. They think, well, I'm supposed to find an idea. No, you're supposed to open your mind and allow yourself to expand intellectually so that the idea that you saw brings you to the next idea that you would have never found. You need to get knocked out of that rhythm a little bit. That's why I like going to the bookstore and kind of finding where I belong and then allowing it to it's not that I'm, benchmarking is kind of a fancy word for I'm going to take what I like here and do it also. No, I mean, sometimes people will put things in that we like, a formatting, things like that. But it's more of finding very creative ideas you can't find if you're in your own head. So you get into other people's heads.
Absolutely, it's all out there, for us to look at and enjoy. And you look on Amazon, etc. Picking up. I mean, I love picking up books in a bookstore and just flicking through, just briefly, and just seeing how they've done things, and think, oh, I could do a bit of this. And at the end of my chapters, I'd seen another book. I thought, I'm going to do an over to you. So it's proactive. It's not shelf help. It's you read the chapter and then go, right, what about you? This isn't about you. So it's very proactive. So, it's what do you want to appear in your book? What would give you joy if you were reading it for the first time? And
Yeah.
it's building, as you say, on the creativity of others. We're always expanding. So on what has come before. And there's so many books out there and good books as well, and the way they've been created. So it is about getting creative. And that's still like an artist was very much that. It was taking others, what they're doing, but don't repeat that. It's already been done. It's, taking that and then building on that as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's put a pin in books for a second. Switch back over. We will be switching back, by the way. But I want to switch back over to the courage it takes to be a speaker, because that's some heady stuff, and yet, boy, once you take it, you're in for the ride of your life. So I encourage people, but it's the same sort of thing. It's we've got to have a topic that's found us, etc. What? Let's start with I think maybe just self-worth, and then we'll slide into pricing a little bit because I think it's 1A and 1B. But why do you think new speakers struggle with the self-worth part of all this?
Well, you're kind of in training at first, aren't you? So and it depends on your subject matter of what you are talking about. So if it's about investment and money, people want to pay because they want. But if it's to do with things like caregivers, for example, or something more spiritual, for example, or health and well-being, it doesn't seem to govern that kind of like the money cha-ching. And so I think a lot of us kind of think, oh, am I worthy? And how much do I charge? And what I did at first, because I was still kind of in training and finding my feet, that I didn't charge in that first year at all. But it got to that point because I was giving a lot of talks for charities, so you kind of like you don't really want to charge, but then you get to a point where you think, I've got to charge for my time because it takes time, doesn't it, Rob? You're not only sitting down. I mean, I've been doing that today because it's Caregivers Week for us here next week. And, writing down the content, then I'm creating a presentation, then it's back and forth with people, who you're going to be giving a talk for. And that all takes time before you've even stepped in front of people and started talking. It's hours and hours of work, and people sometimes don't really realize that. But I thought to myself, I have to. And it's almost like another stepping up. It's like, valuing your worth of what you are worth for, and what difference does it make for you standing in front of others and what you're going to do for them. So it's been very tricky, and it's been very tricky in me as well. I found it a bit, what do I charge? And I've gone back and forth, even because I give talks for corporates as well as charities as well, and even they have just a particular budget, and sometimes I put in a price. So this is what's happened for me of recent, and if it's too much, they go quiet. It's almost like that email goes into a black hole. You probably had that happen to you as well, Rob.
Yeah.
Um, but when I have a meeting with them, when they first kind of, so first, there's always like that initial meeting with them online, on Zoom, on Teams or whatever. We're chatting, then we talk about the cost, and because it goes into that black hole, what I do is I have a chat with them, and I'm kind of watching their body language. And I, recently I kind of sort of had it out with them there and then and said, well, what is your budget? And ask them that. If this is too much, let me know, because I want to get this out there for your caregivers. So that's how I've gone about that. Because if emails are great, but if you're like I say, putting out a price and then it goes into a black hole, it's all a bit awkward, isn't it? What do you do? I mean, what do you do, Rob, if somebody goes quiet and you're wanting to speak for them? It'd be
Yeah, I throw
interesting.
things. I tend to throw things. I kick things. It's maddening is the answer to your question. So it's funny. I didn't think we were going to go here, but let's go here. Um, the maddening part, and I completely agree with you, is not only putting a number out there and them going quiet, but frequently I have companies that will come back and go, finally come back and go, well, we decided on so and so because they were, 2% less than the number that I had given them or whatever, but yours didn't fit our budget. And because a lot of times I have companies don't want to give me their budget. So I am guessing at this number in thin air. And I've got companies that are making decisions without allowing me to at least enter into a negotiation. So the way I do it is, be it email or verbally, I tend to say pretty much the same thing. As for pricing, that's the easiest part of this conversation. The hard part is getting the right speaker with the right message in front of the right group at the right time. And that I can do. As for pricing, I'm sure we'll be able to find a number that works for both of us. That's my way of saying, weakening my negotiation a little bit and saying, I'm open to negotiation. But Sarah, I'm just too tired of having customers come back to me and not realize you could have gotten a much better speaker, but you never even entered into a conversation. I think they're a little bit anxious sometimes. They don't want to
Yeah.
hurt our feelings. So we have to kind of, let's be proactive on it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that as well. And like I say, being on a Zoom call like this and then kind of having it out and attempting that in negotiation, I really don't like that kind of hustling. It's not really me. It's not what I'm good at. And, you know, we can't be good at everything. And it's very annoying because you have to put out your own marketing, you know, hustling, whatever it is. But you find a way and it does become uncomfortable, but you deal with it, and it's just part of the course when you are being a professional speaker.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, uh, my publicist says, stop giving the years as you've been doing this, but I'm close to 40 years as a professional speaker now. I still get anxious about this. All right. I practice it. I know my numbers. So for me to look you in the eye and tell you, this is what the future looks like. I don't know. Let's make this half full. I don't think that's so bad. I really care. You really care. We're trying to find this number. Maybe we should feel a little bit anxious about it. But last time I looked, the caterer was getting paid, the hotel was getting paid, the
Yeah,
AV specialists were getting paid. We have a service that gets paid too. And one last thing, it helps to be a sales trainer, but a few times when I've thrown a big number at a client who said, "Oh," I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, how about we do it this way? I'll take nothing to speak, but and I worked out a percentage of gain in sales for this corporation over the next year, and I'll only take 5% of that." And immediately I have clients go, "No, no, no, we'll pay your number," which is me basically saying, "Hey, if we don't make more money as a company, don't pay me, but we will make more money." And so if you want to play that, and then all of a sudden my number doesn't look so bad to them anymore. But
there you
that
go.
helps to be a sales trainer and basically say, I'm putting this program up against your sales numbers. Want to bet me?
No, I really like that. You know, and like you say, you're calling them out and saying which one do you want to go for?
Right. I'll go, yeah,
Exactly.
free. I'll be free. Just, and if we don't make any more money, wow, you got training and you didn't have to pay for it. But no, I think what that does, and I tell you that story because I think what that does is remind us that we're providing value when we go there. And yes, we can be entertaining and we can be motivational, we can be inspiring, but you're
Mhm.
going with information, Sarah, that really can help people manage their lives, and
Absolutely.
particularly the ones that are in the heart of it right now and struggling. And you need to be compensated for that. As a matter of fact, I think what you're offering, in a sense, is much more priceless than what I offer. I'm trying to help somebody make more money. You're helping somebody manage their lives through
Absolutely.
crisis.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because you know, and I give my story as kind of a role play and so it's really opening my heart and showing vulnerability at the beginning of my talks most of the time, and that helps caregivers to kind of open up as well because we suppress our emotions. But when you show that vulnerability as a speaker, it allows others to kind of open up and share as well. And there's many a time I've seen caregivers, you know, have a few tears. And on the very first ever talk that I gave. It was online for Carers First, one of the national charities here in the UK. And I remember all these images of people coming up and they were all sat waiting. And it's probably one of the hardest ones I ever did because they looked They didn't look well, they didn't look good. And I thought, this is where the real work starts, not the book. This is where it really, really changes. And I thought, just get on with it. And I kind of say that in my head, deal with it. And so, as it's not very kind to myself, but it's just shooing myself up. And one of the ladies at the end of that, she said, I haven't cried for 2 years. She said, but I've actually cried today. And it allows those to kind of release and go, oh, I had no idea how I was feeling, which was the same as me. You get blindsided by caregiving. So it's, me opening up allows them to open up as well and really shift them. And I know of caregivers who are long-term sick only weeks after their loved one has passed. And I remember at that time, don't make that part of your life. You've got to make changes and look after you. And so I share that with caregivers. It's a huge red flag, but in allowing that, it changes a lot of caregivers' trajectory in their lives. It really does, because the things that I've learned did the same for me. So it is very powerful. So anybody out there that's contemplating, oh, the answer is yes. And you grow, you transform through sharing, and you learn along the way. And it makes life so much more exciting and fulfilling.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten emotional giving a presentation?
Do you know, before I became a professional carer, I gave a talk for the Brain Tumour charity here in London, and it was called A Decade of Caring, which it was at the time. So Neil was still alive and very disabled, and I kind of spoken it and rehearsed it, but when I got up, oh my God, I had a proper meltdown, and I had no idea how I was feeling, and I actually was crying through my talk. But it's funny, everybody remembers that talk because it's the emotions. If you have a really polished talk and everybody, and you all look fine, they go, yeah, yeah, that's great, thanks very much. But if you've got emotion packed in there, or vulnerability, or you share a little bit of yourself and you've got some stories to share, now people are listening. Now they're really taking it in, and they really did remember. And it was all on the feedback forms afterwards. And I have to rein it in. So I do a bit of emotion, but I don't want to go too far and open myself too much when I share my story, because this is about those who are listening. It's not about me. I just want them to kind of start to feel into themselves as well of what's going on. So yes, I have done, but only briefly on that time a number of years ago.
Well, it doesn't surprise me though that you still have a group that will never forget that talk because it was so authentic what was going on and genuine. It's one of the, one of the, I guess the positives. People think, well, when I'm early on, I'm going to be judged and I'm not going to feel I won't feel as comfortable with the presentation. And I always smile and say, yes, yes to everything. However, there will be a level of authenticity that you will never be able to replicate. The more you give that talk, the more polished the talk becomes, and that's a good thing. But you'll never be able to get in touch with that emotion, even if you didn't cry. But we can feel it, a little shake in the voice sometimes, just
Yeah.
something that says she is there right now with us. Do it 50 times, and we're almost too polished. It's a weird irony, isn't it? The more we do it, sometimes the less in touch we are with the audience and the message.
Yeah,
Kind of
absolutely.
kooky.
You've got to let go. You've got to let loose, really. They've got to see the real you, the authenticity of you when you're speaking. And that's when people really engage. So I give my talk and then I go to slides afterwards, and then they're tuning in because like, oh blimey, well, because they know they're resonating on the same level as you as well. They're picking up on the vibe. And yes, I do kind of like do a little bit of a voice break when there's something that I shout, stuff the cancer, Neil. We'll make the most of what we have. When after he asked me to marry him, and then the cancer was back, and I do that. And like you say, and I say I've rehearsed it, but I've done it a number of times, but I do feel it as well. And I think that's the thing. To do it as a polished performance, people know, they can tune in. But if you just give a little bit more of yourself, people are really listening.
Right.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah,
Yeah.
and which is good because they need to, because you've got something great to tell them, and it's going to make a difference and an impact in their lives for good. Yeah, it really matters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, there's speaking and there's the way we speak. A lot of times, even as a kid, I remember my dad was a Marine, getting swatted once or twice. I did not swat as a parent, but there was a little swatting going on, and frequently I heard it wasn't what you said; it was how you said it. And I was like, as an 8-year-old, you figured that one out. I thought I was getting that one by you, but as a speaker, a lot of times it's really not what we say; it's how we say it, and um, we have to have experienced that moment. That's very unique for you. But I would guess that you don't have any trouble getting to the authentic side of all of this because you lived it. You didn't read it out of a book. You lived it. So
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
it makes sense to me.
Absolutely. I love what you just said then, actually, because it's the Iranian physicist, psychologist rather, Albert Mehrabian. He said when we're communicating, I'm sure you know this, only 7% of spoken word. Mostly it's body language, it's our tonality, it's how we come across. That's what people are picking up when we're communicating back and forth as well. So really interesting when you mention that as well. People know because if you say, "Hey, how you doing?" If you say, "Oh, how are you doing?" you can tell immediately
Right,
what that
right,
means. Actually,
right.
what some of my friends, because I'm so tuned in, I'm like a mindfulness instructor as well, all those kind of things that I've been enjoying. I'll, when somebody comes on the phone, a friend, I say, "How are you?" And they'll go, "Oh," they'll just literally do that. I go, "You don't need to say anymore. You don't even need to say any words. It's just that breath of however they come across. You can tell when you tune in, and when I do have Q&A with carers, I not only listen to what they're saying, I hear what they're not saying. So when we do have Q&As on a talk, it's really tuning in, listening with your heart, not just with your ears. And then I come out with things sometimes. So I never talk about crystals and things like this, completely off the rails actually, but never spoken about it. But there was something that happened with one particular talk for a group of caregivers up in the north in Blackpool, and I said, and what kept coming into my head was talk about rose quartz, and I thought, God, that sounds bizarre, and I kind of pushed it away, and it still came again. So when you're really in flow, things will start to come. You'll think, oh, it's not something I'd normally talk about. So I did. I said, get yourself some rose quartz about self-love, self-care, and the lady who had actually organised the whole thing said, "Oh my God, I have a piece in my pocket right now, and I always touch it when I need to give myself a bit more self-love." But I've never said that kind of thing again because I don't talk about crystals while I'm talking about caring. It's completely, but it's tuning in and really listening and being in the moment. Yeah, it really makes a difference. It really does pack a punch of what
Right.
else we can share. Yeah, and the
The
time.
words that you used were right. It's when you were in the moment. I've said things and I've never said them again, but I was just in the moment. And that means occasionally, particularly for us, for the workshoppers out there, when we're not doing a keynote, but we're up for 8 hours or 16, believe me, we've all been in the moment and said something, went, "Oh, I wish I could grab that one back." But I was in the moment, and then we just do a little repair. But I never fear of straying a little bit. I'd rather have the freedom to be in the moment and not be afraid of that moment and realize that with it comes an occasional cross the line when we just ease back
You're a
again.
human. You're a human being. We're all going to say something or do,
Right.
which we're not too happy about. I'm just thinking of another time really. Caregivers are usually absolutely lovely. They're a selfless breed of people, because they're giving their love, their time, their energy, their life, and not everybody will step up and do that sort of thing. But I do remember just one where one caregiver shouted, "Well, it's all right for you. You don't care anymore." And I thought, and I was giving my talk for free, and she was quite right. But I also recognised me in her as well, and I wasn't in a good place and angry at one time, which is a typical emotion while you're caring, because you're going through so much frustration and angst and even anticipatory grief, and I didn't take it personally. And I think that's the thing. If you've got anything that's coming up that happens, don't take any of it personally. It's what that person's going through at that time. And I didn't mind. And in fact, the host afterwards said, apologized profusely. And I said, it's fine. She's just vocalizing. She's just getting it out of her system. She's not in a good place.
Right.
So yeah, just recognize that if any of that kind of thing comes up. Yeah.
Yes. I actually have a very detailed process of how to handle disruptive behavior. Because if you're going to help people become speakers, and we can take the mystery out of that, which is pretty much the worst thing that can happen to be it can get worse than what you just described. I call them snipers. They sort of hide behind the room. But there's about six things we can do. And the first one is always on my list is first one's free. Sometimes people are just in the moment. They say things just like you gave me some grace a minute ago and go, listen, these things happen. It happens. Now, if it happens a second time, then it's not that we're going to confront but we have to move to stage two because we don't want this to distract the rest of the audience. We have to have the courage to make a move. And my move, if you want to know, and then we'll move off this, is to relay, meaning let the audience respond to the individual because most people there, even those that are angry, still don't like the way that's coming out against the speaker, and will come to bat for us a little bit. But that's a whole another ball game. But I
Yeah.
like your move, which is don't overreact. And I'm just sliding in. I don't because the first one I just figured it came out wrong. I'm just answering the question.
Yeah, absolutely. All you can do is, all I can do is apologize or whatever. But you don't know how that person is. You don't know if they're not in a good place. I know caregivers aren't a
Yeah.
lot of the time from all the things that they're dealing with. So yeah, you just be in the moment and yeah, right. Don't get taken away with that actually. So you can come back to your core message so that everybody else sitting there is going to take something away and
Right.
utilize it when you finished your talk. That's the main thing. That's number
Right.
one.
The audience is behind you. They heard it. They felt it. They were probably a little embarrassed themselves if it's if it's a group because most audiences, unless we've antagonized them, do care about the speaker, and so their feelings are a little bit frayed right now, also. So the biggest move you made, and but you made it effortlessly, and sometimes we have to remind people is don't overreact to things like that because we don't want to make the audience choose sides. Right now, the audience is 100% on your side. But if I get angry, now the audience says, "Well, I knew that guy was bad, but now I'm not happy about him either." And so we don't want to create that kind of mess.
No,
And so anyway,
that's not
it's
that's not
tricky.
what people have come for at the
Right,
end of the day.
right,
You
right.
know.
All right, let's push on. Well, last question for you. Uh, and I've been TikToking back and forth with regards to this book and the reason why I'm pushing on the book with you is because that really, if we want to be a professional speaker, you've got to have a book. It's just speakers
Yes.
bureaus won't even look at you. It's just part of the entry fee of coming into the speaking world. So
Yeah.
for you, what most surprised you about that you didn't anticipate when you finally started putting pen to paper or fingers to keyboard or however we want to say it these days? What surprised you most about the project?
Okay, so the biggest surprise for me, actually, it was like a work in progress with the book. And actually, somebody asked me about this only last weekend because they want to get their book out as well. And it was about looking at how you put down all the words. At first, I started to physically write like Dr. Wayne Dyer did. That didn't work for me. Then I started to try and type. About caring. It sounded like a complaint letter. That didn't work either. And then finally, I used dictaphone. So I kind of used my notes on my iPhone as I'm walking the dog. And then you're kind of in that flow state. But moving forward, it's all shifted again. I can just type and I'm fine. It's all changed because you change, you grow, you adapt, you evolve as you go through this process. Now, I've finished my second book just recently, but I'm just editing it. It's taken me forever, but much easier. But it's like anything, isn't it, Rob? You keep going in that direction. You learn more. it becomes easy. It's like learning a language, and it's the same with books as well. And with the last book, the way I wrote it is different, and the way that I've done it to this one. So it's being creative of finding a way and actually enjoying it. Please enjoy writing your book. Don't go, oh, it's a chore. Don't do that, because the reader's probably going to think that as well. Write it because you and enjoy it, and get into that moment of enjoying it and finding a way. Maybe sitting somewhere really comfortable. Do you know, I wrote a lot of my book in bed, Rob, which is really terrible to say, but sat up. And I'm on the right up in the loft, and it's such a nice space up there. But when you get yourself really comfortable, it just allows everything to really flow. And then you come up with other things, other ideas at the same time. So yeah. So, and actually, the big thing for me was winning the award. And I know I mentioned it before, but I thought, oh, I'm not going to win anything. I'm a nobody. But hey, we're all a nobody at some stage, but we are everybody, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I was quite surprised at that, because I thought, oh no, oh well, don't worry about it. I actually just pushed it to one side, and lo and behold, you just don't know where this will take you.
But you can't get there without the book, and you don't know where it's going to take you. I think you hit on some really good points. I think there's a momentum that goes into writing the book. So the scariest part is before we've actually written anything and talking about it and thinking about it. That's why, and everybody does it their own way, but I love getting an outline out so I can see, even if it's 8 bullets on a page, I can
Yeah.
see the chapter. And now I've got 12 other pages, 9 other pages where I now can see the book, because each one's a chapter. But that's one of my tricks of the trade. And the other one is, great point you made. Want to enjoy it, folks? Don't edit while you're writing. This is a real Robism here, but I think a lot of times it's miserable because we're editing and re-editing and re-editing, and now I'm a year and a half. I'm on chapter 1 still, maybe 2. No wonder it's not fun. Let's pound out a manuscript. Let's get 60,000 words on paper on that computer screen. Don't worry if you told the same story twice, but that makes it more joyful. Then we'll go. I'll give it to some. You'll read it, Larry. Sometimes I struggle reading my own stuff. If I told the same story twice, let me know. If my grammar's off, we'll fix it. But let's get moving on this book and stop thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly, because it's in your head, and it's the last thing I do. I need to get this damn thing out. And you've got that project there, and the last thing you want to do is kind of have it almost ready, but it's still sitting there. Carve out that time. We want it out. We want to see it. There's going to be people waiting and really wanting to read your book.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. So,
Right.
keep going. And, when I went to get my book published, I mean, everybody gets their books, like a lot get self-published and everything now. I kind of wanted mine traditionally published, but it took me a few years to do that. It kind of went around the houses. And, if you've got something out there, keep pushing. Don't let anything grind you down, because, if you're pioneering, you're coming out with something a little bit different. It does take a little bit longer for people to sit and listen. When I first put my book out, even to like the Caregiver Centre, it just went into a black hole. They didn't even reply. They didn't even say, oh, thanks. I just thought, oh, I thought they would kind of be vaguely interested, but people are busy, and people have got doing lots of things. We're time poor, most of us. So don't give up is what I will say. Please, whatever you do, just keep going, because when it comes to that success, then it helps you step forward and make the next step, and then the next step, and you
Right.
never know where it may lead. Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of times it's timing. I've never told this story before, but the second book that I wrote, I spent well over 2 years trying to get a deal, trying to get a deal, trying to get a deal. And then Simon and Schuster, one of the biggest publishers,
Yeah.
I mean, probably the fourth time I'd sent it to him, but said, "Oh, come on into New York. We want to talk to you about the book." And it was all timing. They already had a book like that in its space that was aging. So the first year wasn't the right time. The second year, better timing. So not only don't give up, but you can keep going back to those same houses. You never know. Just a word of caution. It almost killed the deal. I forgot that I put my draft date on the manuscript. So the only objection they had was, oh, one other question. It says here your manuscript that from 2 years ago, whatever. Why is the draft date 2 years? I went, oh, well, drafts. I didn't know what the word, I mean, I don't know what story I made up, but I was hama, thinking, watch the dates on your manuscript. You don't realize you can put that draft kind of into the footer or the header. And somebody may look at that and go, so you've been looking for 2 years? I'd rather not advertise that. That was, I would have loved to have
Good
been on
to
fly on the
know.
wall.
That's a really good one to know because, like you say, but it is. It's the luck of the draw. Sometimes you just get
Right.
the right person within a publishing house. They just happen to click on it and go, "Oh, I like this," and before you know it, and then there's other days where they just think, "No, no, no,
Right.
I'm not interested."
Or
You know,
those editors, they move around a lot as well. They may have cleaned the house a little bit and got a couple other editors in your spot. So you just don't know. You got to keep
absolutely.
going. Oh, this has been terrific. I really loved it. And I think we hit both sides of this thing like I was hoping. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.whocares and then number four carers.com, whocaresforcarers.com. And there's videos on there, my books on there. You can learn more about there and my course. It'd be lovely to hear from you as well. And I'm giving talks as well. Caregivers Weeks next week. I'll be giving talks for Carers First and Carers UK. So, yeah, look out for those. Sign up for my newsletter if you are a caregiver. I put that out once a month, for whatever's going. So, yeah, please do get in touch.
Good. And also, you're fairly active on LinkedIn because that's where I met you. So
Yeah.
I think you can find Sarah on LinkedIn. Is that okay if they go to LinkedIn and
Yes,
find you there?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how do you
absolutely.
spell that last name again?
Okay, so it's Sarah without the H, and then it's Chalice, which is CHALLICE.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Sarah
All
Chalice.
right. Well, it has been a joy having this conversation with you. And I think it's magical what you've done in terms of taking a tragedy and really being able to help others navigate through that. I think it's terrific. And I'm just wonderful pointers about that book and speaking as well. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Rob. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please follow, rate, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more resources and to connect with Rob, visit thepresentationwhisperer.com.